Fellas, every UFC champion right now has a division ahead of them that want to take that belt away from them, and some divisions and some champions may have tougher fights than others, so I'm going to be going through every current UFC champion and ranking and matchmaking them how well they would do against the top 10 in their division. Would they win? Would they lose? I'm also going to do an exclusive kind of extra point of who would be the toughest fights for them in the division that wouldn't win. So who do I think the champion could beat but would offer a massive threat to them? So I'm going to be doing that in every division, starting off with heavyweight. Now, the fighters who I don't think Jon Jones can beat is, first of all, Tom Aspinall. Now, Tom Aspinall, I think he would finish Jon Jones. He's younger, he's got S-tier grappling, S-tier striking, hits like a truck, and he's pretty much looked flawless in every fight in the UFC besides one fight against Curtis Blades where he got injured. I think he would go out there and finish Jones within 5 rounds comfortably. I just don't think Jones anymore has that much threat to offer to Aspinall like he might do to the rest of the division. And on top of that, I feel like that's mainly why Jon Jones doesn't want to fight Aspinall. I've also included Ngannou. Now, he's not in the UFC, so technically it kind of goes against the entire idea of this video. But listen, he's a heavyweight. He's around the UFC's, He's a heavyweight in the combat sports world who's just left the UFC 2023, so I'm going to include him, and I do think Ngannou would beat Jon Jones. He's had massively improved takedown defense, hits like a truck. It'd be too dangerous for Jones, and Ngannou is in his prime right now. Jones isn't. Ngannou would finish Jon Jones. The rest of the division, yeah, Jones, I think he'd beat all of them somehow, whether it be his grappling or his striking. I think he would beat all of them. And the only other tough fight I can see for Jon Jones is Jailton Almeida. Almeida has amazing grappling, and Jones wouldn't be able to kind of beat him with his grappling like he did with Cyril Gane, and then it would just be a fight on the feet. And I don't think Jones is, although he's a better striker than Almeida, I don't think it would be worlds apart. So that's my opinion on Jon Jones and how he does against the rest of the division. Light heavyweight, or Alex Pereira. I think he would not be able to beat Ankalaev. Now, Ankalaev, I've said this before the fight with Johnny Walker, I do think he'd beat Alex Pereira. I think out of every contender in the light heavyweight division, he poses the biggest grappling threat, which is what Alex Pereira kind of struggles against, as we've seen in his previous MMA fights or UFC fights against people like Jan Blachowicz, Yuri, Adesanya, and Ankalaev would pose the biggest threat. And on the feet, he's dangerous as well. Outstruck Jan Blachowicz and just knocked out a decent striker in Johnny Walker. Ankalaev is a nightmare matchup for Alex Pereira. He's going to keep him guessing, and I genuinely think he's going to finish Alex Pereira if they have a fight, which they probably will. And for other tough fights, I've gone Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill could put Pereira's lights out at any moment. They both could. If I had to bet on one, I would be betting on Pereira to beat Hill, but Jamal Hill hits like a truck. He's a knockout artist. He's just a really difficult fight for Pereira. And I do think Pereira would win, but it's not an easy fight by any means. So that's what I think about Pereira, and I think he'd beat everyone else in the division. Middleweight, Sean Strickland. Now, there's a lot of people here who I don't think he'd beat. I'll explain all of them. Starting off with Dricus, he's going to be fighting him this weekend. I just think Dricus, with the durability that he's got, the improved cardio, the power, and the awkwardness of Dricus du Plessis, I think he's going to get past Strickland, and I think he's going to finish him with ground and pound within 3 rounds. Obviously, the later the fight gets, it favours Strickland, but Strickland's used to fighting people who stand and bang with him or, technically strike with him. That's not going to be Dricus. He's going to be mixing up with grappling and striking, and my bet is on Dricus du Plessis to finish Sean Strickland, although it is a tough fight for both of them. And then for Khamzat Chimaev, it's not a confident pick because Khamzat has kind of looked life and death in a lot of his fights, and with a guy's insane cardio with Sean Strickland for 5 rounds, it's a dangerous fight, but he's undefeated, and I just think that the grappling threat that Khamzat Chimaev brings, I do think he'd be able to take Strickland down. Although Strickland's not a bad grappler, I think he'd be able to take Strickland down and beat him on the ground for a good 2 or 3 rounds. And I do think he could definitely find a finish in those rounds. As long as he improves his stamina, I think he could beat Sean Strickland. Now, Jared Cannonier and Brendan Allen have both faced Strickland before. Cannonier has won. It was a really close fight, but Cannonier has won, and I do think he'd win again. He's got really good power. His offensive boxing is insane, and since the Marvin Vettori fight, he's looked incredible, and I do think Jared Cannonier would have beat Strickland if they were to have a rematch. And Brendan Allen, he got beaten comfortably by Strickland the first time, but ever since the Strickland fight, we've kind of seen a new version of Brendan Allen. This insane grappler went out there and submitted so many people with his signature rear naked choke. And I reckon Brendan Allen would submit Strickland within a few rounds. And for tough fights, I've gone Whittaker. I do think Strickland would be able to beat Whittaker, but if we take away the Dricus du Plessis loss from Whittaker's record, he looked amazing in all of his other fights. He was beating pretty much every middleweight besides Adesanya. He's got amazing striking, he's got decent grappling, he's well-rounded, and I just think it'd be an overall tough fight for Strickland to win. So that's middleweight. Welterweight. Now, this might be a bold take, but I don't think there's anyone in the welterweight division who Leon Edwards can't beat. There's nobody that stands out for me as a really, really, obvious pick that's of someone who's going to beat Leon Edwards. Now, for the tough fights, there's 3, and these are really tough fights. Belal Muhammad, I think Leon Edwards is faced back-to-back grapplers in Usman and Covington, and I just think that the game plan of Belal won't be enough to beat Leon Edwards. I know Belal's not terrible as a striker, but Leon Edwards is a way better striker. He's used to facing grapplers, and I feel like he's going to be able to shut down Belal Muhammad's game. Shavkat on the feet, I think it's going to be quite easy for Leon Edwards to beat Shavkat on the feet. And the grappling, he's got a way bigger grappling threat than Belal Muhammad. He's an amazing submission artist, but like I said, Leon's used to these grapplers, and I think he'd be able to beat Shavkat Rakhmonov within 5 rounds. And I've also gone Gilbert Burns. He's a scrapper. He's got great boxing. He hits kind of hard. Great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And if he was to mix everything up, it could definitely be awkward for Leon Edwards to beat. But I don't think there's an obvious pick that Leon Edwards loses to anyone right now in the welterweight division. Then we go to lightweight. Islam Makhachev. This is the only one on this list where I don't think there's anyone that beats Makhachev. And you know what? I'm even going to go as far to say that I don't think there's any tough fights for Makhachev. I think he would finish, or has at least the capability to finish, every single fighter in the top 10 at lightweight. Makhachev's just insane. He's the pound-for-pound best. He's extremely skilled. He's dangerous. He's got no flaws in the octagon. Makhachev has no flaws. The only flaw you can possibly give Makhachev is that his durability isn't that great. From the first fight we saw against Volkanovski, I don't think anyone in the lightweight division poses a threat to Islam Makhachev. So I just think Islam's going to run through everyone in the division. Pretty straightforward. Maybe Arman Sarukian could give him a tough fight, but I need to see more from him. Just one win over Beneil Dariush, but that's Islam. Featherweight, I think Volkanovski would beat everyone at featherweight. He's already beaten a fair few people in the rankings, but the only fighter I really give seeing Volkanovski a tough fight is Ilia Topuria. Volkanovski's coming off a knockout loss, and Ilia Topuria hits like a truck. He's got insane boxing, especially on the inside, especially with the fact that he's got good jiu-jitsu, good grappling overall. He's well-rounded and dangerous, younger, undefeated, and I think he does definitely pose a finishing threat to Volkanovski, but I don't think he'd beat Volkanovski. I think Volkanovski is going to have what it takes to beat Ilia Topuria. I think he's going to beat him by decision. He's just going to pick him apart like he does with the rest of the featherweights, but Ilia Topuria poses a big threat that a lot of other featherweights don't because of his power and because of his great jiu-jitsu as well. So for featherweight, I'm saying the only tough fight for Volkanovski right now is Ilia Topuria. Bantamweight, for Sean O'Malley, the 2 people that I don't think he could beat and I think would beat O'Malley, I've gone with Sandhagen first. The reason I've gone with Sandhagen is because just like Sean O'Malley, he's a lanky, amazing, dangerous striker. So they've both got things in common there, and I feel like on the feet, that would be a great fight. But the thing that separates the 2 of them is Sandhagen's shown that he's an incredible grappler. Out-grappled, Marlon Vera like it was nothing. Out-grappled Rob Font pretty comfortably, and although Sean O'Malley has great takedown defense, if Corey Sandhagen can keep him guessing, that's a dangerous fight for Sean O'Malley, and I feel like stylistically, Sandhagen will be able to take care of him. And I've also got Merab. Now, he has only got one decent win over Yan. He has also beat Aldo, but it wasn't that impressive. But he's got a really impressive win over Yan, setting records, putting the pressure on Yan, and he looked dangerous in there. And against Sean O'Malley, I know he was able to evade the grappling of Aljo, even though he only shot for like 1 takedown. But I feel like a guy like Merab, I feel like Merab would easily be able to take Sean O'Malley down. I mean, Sean O'Malley was getting out grappled by Yan. I think if you put him in there with Merab would play with him when it comes to grappling. There's always the chance that Sean O'Malley knocks him out, but we can't just ride on that forever. I do think Merab would be able to beat Sean O'Malley. For the tough fight, I've gone Henry Cejudo. I feel like Henry Cejudo's just past his prime and old now, to the point where Sean O'Malley would be able to defend the takedowns and beat him on the feet, especially with the height difference that they have. But it's always a tough fight when you're going in there with a guy with grappling as high a level as Henry Cejudo. I do think O'Malley would win, but it's a tough fight for him. But yeah, that's Sean O'Malley. And then finally, Pantoja. Again, kind of like Volkanovski, I don't think anyone right now beats Pantoja in the flyweight division. I think he's going to be flawless and get a few more defenses in his next few fights. But he's beaten him 3 times, but it was not close. It was close, sorry. It was very close against Brandon Moreno. And if there's one guy that's going to give Pantoja a tough fight in every single one of their fights, it's going to be Pantoja. It's going to be Moreno. But yeah, that is my list for every UFC champion and how they would deal with the top 10 in their division. Let me know if you agree. Is there anyone that beats him that I say, well, beats the champion that I disagreed with? Let me know your thoughts. Who's the biggest threat for every champion? And thank you for watching.